to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Feiss.
Here.
Mr. Grisbeck.
Here.
Mrs. Janicek.
Here.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Here.
Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Here.
Mr. Scalzo.
Here.
Mrs. Turner.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up to any public comments on the agenda items that we have tonight. Any call-ins? No? No call. Okay. Let's move on to the committee reports then. The main event for tonight, facilities and services. So Hayes Design Group. Oh, well, I guess I'll turn it over to Jim since it's his show.
Doing fine.
Okay. No, no, really.
I'm not offended at all.
I don't want to be a hog.
All right, Facilities and Service Committee. We have a presentation from Hayes Design Group tonight in Site Logic on Phase 1 of the IMS renovation, and then some other work done at the bus garage and Phase 2 at IMS. So we'll start off with that. There are other items after that, but we'll start with Hayes Group. Mr. Hayes.
Certainly. Thank you very much. We're actually going to start talking about the bus garage project first. Doug, when you get a chance, we can advance the slide. So just giving everybody a brief update on where we're at with the bus garage. So it's actually been submitted for permits. So they actually have to go through multiple levels. So we started with the local community, Bethel Park. So we made that submission. The first set of comments have come back to us, and CEC, the civil engineer, is working on making revisions based on those comments. There was nothing significant there. It was more just they wanted more information. The other entity that it's currently being reviewed by is the Allegheny Conservation District, and we have not gotten the initial comments back from them. We expect them any day now, and then from that, we'll have a good sense of if there's going to be any changes to the known scope. But that whole process, so typically the county conservation is a multi-month process. So we expect an initial set of comments. We'll respond to those comments. They may give us more comments based on our responses. It usually goes 2 or 3 rounds before that process wraps up, and it can go anywhere from 3 to 6 months in total. That submission was originally made more than a month ago, so we're well into that process. It just depends. Yeah, it's usually stormwater related, quite frankly, and are making sure you're retaining the proper amount on your site. So in this case, our entire site's almost asphalt, so, and it's all going underground. So we're not expecting very much, but you just never know. So, any other questions on the government approvals? All right, moving right along. So what we're asking for, oh, sorry, same slide. So what we're asking for tonight is actually approval to go bid that project. So we'd like to advertise the project for bid and go out to bid to contractors in the area and, you know, hopefully have that project work this summer. So the project consists of, I think if you all remember, paving work. So we're going to repave the entire bus garage site. We're going to replace all the existing stormwater that's there. We're also going to regrade along the property line with South Hills Movers. There's that right now it's a little steep, so we're going to just ease that grade back. And then the last part is the site power. So that's not, you know, power to the building, that's power for the buses. So all the buses get charged overnight. So there's power poles that sit in the lot. So it's replacing all of that infrastructure as well. So that's the scope. So that's what we're seeking permission from you tonight is to bid that project. We have engaged several local contractors, just called them to just generate interest in the project, make sure checking on people's availability, you know, what their thoughts are. We have been told it is a busy market for them right now. So there's a lot of work on the streets for them, but a few of the contractors we were able to get a hold of did say they would be interested in looking at the project, so that's good. But what they let us know, and the last item we want to talk about here is cost. They've seen quite a bit of cost inflation related to the oil prices going up. You know, asphalt is a petroleum-based product, and those costs have gone up significantly, particularly in the last 30 days due to kind of what's going on around the world. And we just wanted to prepare you that the project could very well come in over budget because of that. And we just wanted to brace the board for that outcome. but we'd still recommend going out to bid and just kind of verifying where we are in the marketplace. Any questions related to that part?
So if the bids are substantially higher and the board chooses to reject them and delay, how does that affect permitting? Once the permits are granted, it doesn't matter when the project would commence?
No, so your permit is only good for a period of time. We would just have to apply for an extension. So that's all that would happen is we would apply for an extension on your behalf and, keep doing that until we did the project, or you said we don't want to do that because it costs money to do that. So you could say, or we could just reapply for the permit again in the future if you want. It's either way can be handled.
So what's the timeline right now that we're on, all things working smoothly?
All things working smoothly. We hope to start the work that I think second week of June. So that's what we're trying to shoot for. So, we go out to bid right now. We'd look to come back to the board in a month with those bids and then get a decision from them if they want to award or not. And if we do, then have the work start the following month.
Okay.
So, and from what we know, we believe we'll have permits in hand at that time.
You send this out to bid, could you, just as a data point, find out from these contractors what the material costs were last year versus this year, just so we have some kind of data point to compare? I know some of the costs may have gone up due to labor, inflation in the labor market. That's probably going to be rather inelastic. But material costs due to oil prices should be more elastic, and you'd expect them to come down. It'd just be interesting to know what premium we're paying to do this project now versus, we're going to start pumping more oil and the price is going to come down, and is it going to be, how much cheaper could it be if we got to a material cost similar to last year?
No, we can certainly ask that question. I know when we talked to them about the market, they said they were experiencing about a 50 to 70% increase right now over the last 30 days. So that's why we're just trying to make sure you're aware that there could be a substantial
Okay.
increase.
Yeah, so, please ask for that data.
Okay.
We'd have last year's paving projects at the elementaries as
So
some point of
baseline.
Oh,
comparison.
yeah, that's true, yeah.
Just a quick question, maybe Doc or Nick. Where will we store the buses if we move forward?
In your driveway.
Yeah, that was
My
gonna,
driveway, my street, we can line them all up.
Yeah, I can address that.
Please.
So the plan is to relocate to the high school lot, which would be where the bus is staged currently, but also a little bit to the left. And then we would have Scott Zeiler and his group work out of the high school while we're doing that. So that's the plan.
Our cameras are working, so we don't,
Well, we're going to, right now, we have, Brett's in the middle of, he just put a couple cameras in, he's trying it out, he's got a couple more, so the plan is to get those in place for this transition.
okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, hearing none, we're actually going to pivot to Site Logic, and I think they're going to talk a little bit about Phase 1.
Yes, good evening, everyone. We just got a brief update regarding the construction progress on Phase 1. Got a few items I want to touch on just briefly. The first of those is contracts. At this point in time, all subcontractors have been selected for Phase 1 of the project. We've got contracts currently circulating. Several of those have been executed at this time. We've got a handful of other ones that are currently out for signature. In regards to clearances and security, subcontractors have begun submitting those to us and to the district for review and approval to grant them access to the building once they begin construction. The next topic I want to touch on is material procurement. At this point in time, we are working with Hayes to review, approve, and release all products associated with the project. We're focusing in on long lead items at this point in time just to mitigate any supply chain risks associated with those. Finally, the last thing I want to touch on is just general schedule. Last week we had a project kickoff meeting on Thursday, April 7th up at the middle school with all subcontractors just to go over the scope of the project and get everyone ready to mobilize and begin work up there. This Thursday, April 14th, we will be beginning furniture moving in selective areas that we're going to be starting in. Construction will begin on May 2nd in designated areas. We'll then continue, we'll have another mobilization on June 6th, the remainder of the middle school. The last two things I just want to mention are Phase 1A is scheduled to complete on August 17th, and Phase 1B is scheduled to complete on October 21st. But in general, that just covers Phase 1 at this point in time. With just beginning, that's a general overview of what we've got going on right now and how things are progressing at this point in time.
Phase 1A is the admin suite, because I don't think anybody would know that. Phase 1A is the admin suite. Phase 1B is the classrooms.
That is correct, yes.
Any questions? Good.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
Okay, so the Phase 2 design work for Independence Middle School. So if you want to take us to the next slide, Doug. So we passed out, we sent out to you guys a summary of really our efforts over the last 2 months talking to teachers. We met with a variety of teachers on multiple days. Met with the 7th and 8th grade teachers, team leaders from the 7th and 8th grade teams, the music teachers, the art teachers, tech ed, family consumer science, gifted programs. And so in that document that you guys got over the weekend, it was really some of the, I guess, the high points of meeting with all of them. And in our presentation tonight, I did want to touch on a couple of those. I kind of cherry-picked the more important things, or the more kind of higher level pieces from that document I gave you. So I'm just going to go over those real quick before we take a look at floor plans. And so the items that are going to be on these next two slides these are mostly spatial considerations. So it doesn't get into systems, doesn't get into how much cabinetry should be in my room, or what type of sound system should be in the auditorium. These are, okay, should my room be next to this person's room? Can we get my room bigger? Those types of things. Spatial sizes of rooms, quantity of rooms. That's what we were driving at this stage. We plan on coming back, talking to teachers before school gets out for the summer, to talk about some of that stuff that I just mentioned. Talk about what's inside their rooms. Where's the marker board wall? Where's the teaching wall? How much? Talk about the location of casework, quantity of casework inside the rooms. We'll do that, more detailed things with them before the summer, and when we get together, probably right before summer, we'll update you guys on those conversations. But for what some of the high level things that we talked about over the last 2 months. So with the 7th and 8th graders, upstairs on that second floor, 7th and 8th grade teachers, the arrangement of the classrooms, we're not going to move around. They work in team teaching pods of 5, so that's, the way the building's set up now on the second floor works well. Overall, it's how can we improve some of the circulation up there? How can we encourage people to use some of the other stairs so everybody isn't going to where the ramp is today, which will be changed into a stair? Try to help some of the flow of traffic upstairs. And then just the last one up there is just, keeping operable partitions, because they like to, use those to collaborate, at least keeping at least one in each team, so each team has a place to collaborate. Unified arts, which is, tech ed, family consumer science, and art spaces. The big takeaway there was just reconfiguring that block of space to improve circulation and improve the efficiency of how those spaces are used. You'll see a little bit more. I'll be able to explain that a little bit better when we look at the floor plans in a minute. But there's a few spaces in there. We have to walk through a classroom to get to a classroom. There's also kind of like there's also sort of like a dead end or a bottleneck corridor down in the tech ed suite. So cleaning that up to help the spaces work better and help the flow of traffic again work better down there. In the music area, really just the two big takeaways there are trying to improve the size of the choral room and the general music room, as well as just addressing some of the acoustical concerns where you can hear the band room anywhere in that whole suite. It's just too noisy whenever band is playing down there, and too disruptive to the other spaces. Can we go to the next slide, Doug? Nope. Whoa. Oh. So on that first slide, anybody, any questions on the first slide?
Were most of those changes already sought after in the initial phase 2, or are there additions? I know we had talked about Unified Arts before, based on where they had storage underneath the ramp and those kinds of things. I do not remember the music suite coming
Yeah,
up.
the music suite is something that evolved during these conversations, was increase that both of those two bullet items. I mean, we did know of addressing some acoustical issues in the music areas, but the idea of increasing, and what I'm going to show you a little bit here on the floor plan, the idea of increasing the size of the choral and general music rooms was something that was uncovered during these last 2 months of further investigation with teachers. Yeah.
So I just have one question on the kind of these bullets in general. As you're interviewing, staff and administration for this project, I imagine there's some requests for any more of this or bigger rooms. Or how are we balancing those requests with the overall budget? At some point, how do we rationalize those two things? Because, in my experience, time somebody wants more or bigger, it's going to cost more. And how do we make sure we stay within the budget?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's pretty much where we're at right now, in the sense of I'm going to show you a bunch of things, that came out of meeting with the teachers, an ideal floor plan, an ideal exterior rendering, an ideal scope of work for the whole project, and then SiteLogic has started to really update the budget in the last few days, and we're going to get together.
Jump in here for a second, Mike. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we have received, schematic drawings from, as Mike has suggested, they are pretty conceptual, and we're putting budgetary numbers against those. Our next step in the process, however, is to come up with an itemized list that, the administration and the board can look at of all these things, the changes, from the previous scope to the scope now, and work towards a budget. So the district sets a budget, we work towards that budget, and that's the process of doing that.
Then I'm going to express my concern, because the music suites weren't on there, Mr. Modirect and Mr. Christensen, and there are some other things changes-wise. We voted last week, 2 weeks ago, on a bond for $42 million.
Yeah, the budget.
The budget is set. Whatever you can do in the $42 million, unless the president says something different, I think.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, just to understand the process, because the budget's the budget, okay? So your job as the architects is to fit what people are asking for in the budget, and if there's areas we have to cut back on, we have to consider that, so.
Understood.
I think the explanation board's looking for is we haven't been designing in a vacuum for 3 months.
Yeah.
We've known what the preliminary budgets were. We've then worked with the teachers, and we've prioritized what they consider to be most important for delivering a 21st century education.
Okay.
So there's been many things that us, along with Dr. Jen Santee, along with the principal, Raquel, at the middle school, where we've said, well, that's too much, and we're going to have to focus on what you think is the most important thing, so that your teachers can teach.
Okay.
And that's what we've been doing. And then,
That's
again,
good
to help the
addition.
board understand, is schematic design, followed by design development, followed by construction document, is an iterative process where, again, we develop a scope, which we have now completed our schematic design scope. You have SiteLogic putting budget numbers to that. At that point, it'll be reviewed with the board, and we'll seek direction as a team, administrators, SiteLogic, and our firm, as to where does the board want to go and what choices do the board want to make in order to, again, meet your educational goals, meet the life and safety requirements for the building, and desirability for further accessibility, as well as changing the look of the building. All these priorities we've been talking about, for many months. And, once we're able to put a price to it, you're able to see, okay, that component is added to the understanding that we all have, and we'll seek direction from the board.
Okay.
And then we'll do it again at the end of design development, because we'll have more information. SiteLogic will have more information to put better pricing to it. We'll repeat the process as necessary. We'll do it again at construction documents.
Okay.
If I can just add one thing, we're going to definitely have to go through the process and look at what we have and look at, right now, we're looking at the educational program and the way we've laid things out based upon, nothing exorbitant, just flow, classroom size, based on need. All those pieces are going to be in place. The look of the building, what we're trying to do to make it look more desirable. So all those things will come into place. From there, if we're over the amount of 42, whatever the budget is, then we have to make decisions. Okay, what's the highest priority, and then work our way down. So we will work through that process and make sure that we, get it to where it's got to go.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that was the base for the little question. As long as you've got, a way to prioritize, you got a way to, box things in, and you've identified needs versus wants. We got to address the needs first. Wants are, a second. So, okay.
All right, you can go to the next one. Okay, so at the library, just really refreshing the library, creating a more open feel in the library, updating the finishes, looking at eventually putting in some lower book shelving that you can see and move around and lay the library out in multiple configurations. And then one of the things we're going to look at in the floor plans is, we talked about as a group in taking the TV studio out of the fine arts wing and just to use it for other spaces, and then setting up maybe what we're calling a user-friendly TV studio in the existing makerspace. And any student, any teacher can go in there and use the camera setup, while it can also be doubled as a makerspace. It just helps, maximize the use of space. Dining and food services, we'll show you in a few minutes your reconfiguration of the serving area to, as this says, provide a more open, more modern food court serving area. Taking a look at, providing a remote serving line so that, which will help them serve the 6th grade students, the additional students that the building hasn't been serving over the past 20 years. And then one of the other things that we looked at was, trying to provide some more, a more open feel outside the auditorium to open up that, where the bathrooms are today, to provide some more visual control of students in the cafeteria. And then the last one on this page here is in the locker rooms. You'll see, downsizing the locker rooms to be what the school uses at this point. And that allowed us to provide some additional classroom spaces, some health classrooms, a fitness room, which is also going to double as a adaptive PE room down there on the lower level. Any questions on those items? Okay, so here is where we landed. Here is the floor plan up on the screen, and the next couple slides will eventually will be zoomed in, so you guys don't have to strain your eyes to kind of read those things up on the screen there. I'm just going to walk everyone through this. In the top right area, that white area in the top right, that is our phase 1 area. Everything in white up there is what's being renovated this summer/fall. So starting with the library, which is in the top of the page, we kind of went over that a little bit. The library's not moving or anything. None of the walls are really shifting. It's just, again, refreshing the library to create a more open and inviting space. To the left of that is the Unified Arts area. And Doug, if you want to go to the next slide, it zooms into the Unified Arts area. So, there we go. Okay, so on the left side is the existing floor plan, and if you can see that ramp right there, it's right outside the sewing lab. Down a little bit. That's the big ramp. Go to the left. There's a ramp right there. So that takes you down into the Tech Ed's Unified Arts area today, and it's, as you can see, it's a little bit of a bottleneck and a dead end there. So that was one of the biggest things, is how do we clean that up? How do we improve circulation down there? While also, maintaining the spaces that the department those departments need, the tech ed spaces, the art spaces, the computer lab spaces. There's also the existing art room. Kids come from the north side and they go through one art room to get to the other, or they come down on the south side and it's the only way to get to the art room on the bottom left, of the plan. So kind of a walk-through classroom scenario there, as well as up on the northern part of the site, northern part of the floor plan to the right, or to the left of that big ramp is the nutrition and sewing lab spaces, where again, you have to walk through the sewing lab to get into the nutrition lab. So we met with the teachers of these departments, talked about what we could, how we could modify things down there, bounced some of our suggestions off of them, listened to them, took their feedback, came back with a sketch, which is very similar to what you're seeing on the right, showed that to them, which they thought was a great improvement on kind of the flow of circulation down there. And it's where we landed really with the schematic design floor plan for the Unified Arts. Taking the two art classrooms, rotating them to create a hallway straight down the middle there and a continuous loop through the Unified Arts area. Adding a 6th grade tech ed classroom where it could fit down on that lower portion. It just kind of conveniently worked out so that it's further away from where the 7th and 8th graders are going to be, up in the top part of the area, top part of the Unified Arts, where materials processing, that's like your wood shop, and then 7th and 8th grade is tech ed, that's your like engineering classes. So it just kind of conveniently worked out that they're on the other end. And then up for the nutrition and sewing lab area, what we did there is we ended up shifting the elevator a little bit from where we had it in phase 1 when we showed you guys drawings before, to create a hallway there to get a dedicated entry into both of those spaces. So that's pretty much where we landed with Unified Arts. Anybody have any questions on that layout? Anything? Any comments? Okay. All right. So I think the next section I wanted to show you guys is the cafeteria. So for the cafeteria, like I said in the program summary, if you look at the bottom right of both of those images, that's where the kitchen is today. So the first thing we looked at doing was knocking out the wall that's between the serving area and the cafeteria. And if you're familiar with what the high school has today, there's those rolling grills that come down in the evenings out in front of the serving area, and that's what we would envision instead of that wall, so that during the school day, that's just open. It's with serving lines, and again, creating that modern food court style approach there. We worked with our food service consultant and met with Joe Consulmag to talk about the equipment needs in the kitchen and replacing outdated kitchen appliances and equipment that really a lot of it is 25, 30 years old, a lot of that kitchen equipment. So this actually shows the walls of how we would incorporate the different the new kitchen equipment. If you look in the top in the bottom left corner of the cafeteria, there's a space there called the deli. Right above that stair, there's a little space called the deli in the bottom left of the cafeteria. Doug, you're still in the kitchen, Doug. Go up to the. There you go. Yeah. Deli. So that's where there is a dishwashing room today that is just in a terrible location to wash dishes. It just is really inconvenient to lug things back and forth. So that was one of the things we were striving to fix here. And so I think, the dishwashing equipment in there is pretty expensive and it's not that old. So we incorporated reusing that, putting it into the kitchen where you see dish kind of in the kitchen area. And then we wanted to try to keep the walls of that dishwashing room, but set it up as their remote, their extra serving line, and envisioning it as like a Subway type thing, make your own sandwich bar type thing. And again, it'd be open kind of where the arrow is, and you'd have a rolling grill in front of it for after hours to block some of that off. The last thing here on the cafeteria that we wanted to point out was if you look at the existing floor plan on the left side of the page where the bathrooms are outside the auditorium, it kind of closes everything in and feels really tight there. So one of the things that kind of evolved during this was moving those bathrooms to the north side of the cafeteria to try to just make that all feel more open. It also will help kind of monitoring where the kids are. They don't have to leave the cafeteria to go to the bathroom, essentially. And then just a minor thing on this drawing, the ramp there, the ramp that takes you from where the top of the page down to the outside the auditorium is something that we will be modifying because it's a little too short to be considered an ADA ramp. It needs to be extended a few feet to meet ADA requirements. So that's where we landed with the cafeteria. Any questions on that drawing?
Just question, if I recall, the bathrooms you're moving to, that was the old teacher's lounge?
Where the bathrooms are now is where the old teacher's lounge is, yeah.
Obviously, there's no issue for them.
There isn't. They don't really use it.
That's what I say. Yeah, the last time I don't believe they
they're using those.
People use that storage.
Yeah, they're using those teacher resource rooms that are upstairs and intermixed throughout the building as their. I think right now that faculty lounge has been taken over as sort of like a glorified custodial office.
Yeah.
So.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just comment, if we can go back for a moment, that the new design, I mean, when it was originally done, there was a clear use of the toilets to create a separation between the corridor outside the auditorium and the cafeteria. In talking to the staff and talking to the administration in the school and looking at it, today it would be really nice to do what we're doing. We're opening it up, so now you have a really nice lobby in front of the auditorium, so any event that you have at the middle school, nice gathering space outside the auditorium, and very easy flow if you have a performance and then want to have a reception afterwards. Nice, easy flow into the cafeteria and a connection between the two. It'll work a lot better. Plus the functioning, Mike mentioned the serving lines and the kitchen are going to work so much better. And then the toilets too, because right now, you come out of the toilets right into a corridor. If it's crowded with a reception, it's awkward. Now the toilets are going to be more private as well. So, works much, much better.
All right, Doug, you can go to the next one. So that was the orangish area there on the right side of the plan. And now we're going to, I believe the next one in there is the music suite. Yes. So the change here was, again, moving the restrooms. So if you look on the left side of in the existing floor plan, again, you have a very similar issue where you walk in, and if you're going to the band room, it kind of takes you to a dead end around those toilet rooms. There's no continuous loop there. And so what we looked at doing after listening to everyone talk about really how the music department works and functions is moving the restrooms to the top of the page. You can see that brown area at the top of the page. And then which eliminates the location of the existing general music room and moving general music to where choral is today and creating a larger choral room that'll better serve the needs of choral. Keeping band and orchestra where they are today, we're just going to do some things to the walls there at a minimum to help with the acoustics. We also eliminated some doors, as you can see. If you look at on the left side of the page, the storage room between band and orchestra has a bunch of doors, and that's not helping their issue of sound. So closing off some of the doors and creating a dedicated storage room for orchestra instead, so that the biggest issue with sound is between band and orchestra, and just trying to button that up as best as we can. Yeah, so those are the changes in music. Any questions on that plan?
Any consideration to moving the restroom, since the ones in the cafeteria are relatively close? Do we have to have a distance, or? I mean, I'm kind of looking, knowing that they're close enough where if I'm in the band room, I can get to the cafeteria ones.
Yeah, it's kind of it's an existing building that we're trying to play a little bit of a game with toilet fixtures. Once you start taking them away, they tend to try to make you bring everything up to current plumbing fixture count for current code. So trying not to get rid of any of them. Shifting them around is okay, but trying to keep the same quantity so we don't basically run into a trap. So.
Thank you.
All right, Doug. So this is the second floor here. There's no enlarged plans of the second floor because we really aren't doing a whole lot of reconfiguration up here at all. As I said earlier, we're keeping these the classrooms in pods of 5 around the whole perimeter of the building there. The one thing that I mentioned when we were talking about the building program was just the idea of trying to improve circulation and encourage routes to exits. So one of the things that we adjusted slightly here is on the left side of the plan, just above the auditorium. There is a hallway that runs left to right on the page, and just getting rid of that hallway because it's really not used for daily function at all, and widening the hallway right where that arrow is. That will start to encourage more students, we believe, from that pod to start using that stair next to the auditorium to go down to the Unified Arts area. That drops you right down into where the art and family consumer science and tech ed spaces are. Today, if you go down that stair, you end up right in the art room. So it can't really be used for circulation. So again, trying to get kids to use more paths so everybody isn't going to that new, or where our new stair is and new ramp is, and just helping the circulation. That's one of the changes we did up there with that. Some of these other notes on here, we added a couple staff toilet rooms to the second floor. As we were trying to provide single-use student toilets at the group restrooms, like down on the lower level, and again, just pointing out locations of operable walls that will be replaced. That's really the high level, kind of summary of the second floor. Any comments on the second floor? Okay. Down all the way, I like to do this in reverse. I like to do the first floor, second floor, and go all the way back down to the ground floor. All right, so ground floor. So the left side of the page, you'll see the locker rooms today. I think there's something in the range of 750 lockers in there right now. Yeah, for each gender. And there's big spaces where, there used to be shower areas that aren't used. So really it was, how can we reconfigure that space so it's better utilized? Reducing the lockers down to what, after talking to the district, feels like the appropriate size for a middle school locker room at this point. So that, on the right side of that renovated area, you'll see the locker rooms that were reconfigured there. Both of them have access directly off the gym. Both of them also have a second access off that hallway, that new hallway that we created there. And each of them have 60 lockers, a restroom area, 2 shower stalls, and then office for the PE teachers. And similar to other subject areas, we met with the PE teachers to go over this and went through this and made any sort of modifications based off any feedback we got from that. On the left side of the renovated area, you'll see what we were able to do with all that extra space. So creating 2 health classrooms that we're able to situate so that they can actually have windows. Because if you're familiar with walking around to the back of the gym, basically where those double doors are on our new plan, and to the actually a little bit lower, Doug, than new double doors. Yeah, those ones. From those double doors up the page is at grade. It's right on the asphalt. So we're able to get some windows in those health classrooms and create an adaptive PE or a fitness room down there on the lower level, as we will be taking over the adaptive PE room during the renovations of the 6th grade wing. So that'll be their new home after we're done with this. The last thing I wanted to point out here was just doing some cleanup work with the toilet rooms on the north side of the plan. There's 2 boys and girls rooms up there that have 2 stalls in each of them. There's also a janitor's closet that has a shower and a toilet in it. So we were able to reconfigure that so that you have 4 single-use toilet rooms. So if you have a bunch of females or a bunch of males at an event, that they don't have to stand in line behind one restroom that only has 2 fixtures in it. Anyone can use any of them. So yes, that's the summary of what we did there on the floor plans on the lower level.
The question the question I have is storage. I have a child that had played softball, and Okay, it's able to hold all the storage, even of the softball equipment for the high school, because that storage unit just looks so much smaller than.
Yeah, that's the intent. That's the intent, that would, the exterior storage is basically for softball. There's really no one else using those exterior storage areas. It's
Right, but it needs to go interior now because it looks like you took out all the storage that's exterior. Okay, it did go interior then, because we were able to access it from the outside, so they will be able to access.
You still access it from the outside. That's the intent, and there's a door there shown on the outside.
Okay.
We can take a look to make sure we're sizing it appropriately, but
I would
from what we
encourage you
saw,
to talk to her, because I know that they were at one point in time. I had to work with Dr. Jansani and Mr. Fierce, because they were still having to cart items in their cars.
Okay.
A couple
We're kind of
years
basing
ago.
it off of what we saw in there, which
Correct.
could be more.
But
yeah.
they've now moved to the field too, so.
Okay.
I would really hope that could be done, and then
Okay.
I think the question is, how does she want to access it, from the outside or from the inside? Because that's less drag on them if they're able to also access it from the inside, because they're using it in the gym.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's indoor practice.
Yeah, they
So
don't-
that's why, at one
Okay.
point in time, I think we were storing it in the storage area right off the gym, because they needed to be able to, and then,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So I think it got moved, but I would really encourage you to talk to her.
Okay.
And talk to Mr. Sloan about what is needed.
Okay.
Because I hate the fact that that's the team that still has to use their car to drag things around.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things we were talking about making sure we did was separate PE storage from athletic storage, so that they don't ever get intermixed. But that's a great point about using the gym as a softball practice area, and the fact that they have to go outside if they have their balls and their pitching machine out there to get it. So, okay.
Yeah, they
we'll look at
use
that.
it for the gym is used.
Mm-hmm.
It's more where the bleachers are, so they don't run
Yeah.
the floor. But the gym is used from January through
Mm-hmm.
when the season starts, because they can't get inside, and baseball uses the gym at the high school.
Yeah. So maybe they have to have a smaller dedicated area for indoor things that are separate, but we'll take a look at that. We'll talk to her.
We can always, when we look at that, we can move that partition between the 2 storage areas and make it right-size it. The other thing we can do is, instead of using the outside door, if both have to be inside access, we can access one through a health classroom or what have you, but we'll look at that.
So in that, the gym area that we're just looking at, I think that's fantastic reutilization of space, for classrooms and things like that. Where was our health classroom? Where is it today?
It was up on the 2nd floor.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's good.
Yeah, it should give Ms. Sutton a little bit more flexibility to move some things around upstairs.
Right.
Yeah, I think they currently have one health classroom teaching 2 teams up there that she'll be able to send down here, and again, just free up some space up there.
Right.
Yep.
Well, the other thing you've done with the hallways upstairs is you've utilized that also. I think the circular flow is fantastic, rather than kind of one-way streets,
Yeah.
that are, where people have to walk, back and forth on the
Right.
same one. Now you can have a circular motion.
Yeah, we were working to, where there's possibility of circular most, it's always better, 2 ways out of a space.
Yeah.
Not just from a safety standpoint, but even from, during the day. But we were also to reduce bottlenecks, where just a whole bunch of people are pushing through one space to get to others, and again, giving people ability to move through space better.
Right.
I'm sorry after you. I'm sorry if you already mentioned this, but were there any changes made to those like teacher teaming rooms, the one you mentioned, that are often used as like the lunch spaces, the break spaces? I know those are really often utilized spaces by the teachers, so I was just curious if we were improving those at all.
So we're kind of at the stage right now where we're just looking at nailing down the locations of spaces. What we'll do in the next, again, probably in May or very early May, we'll meet and talk about inside those spaces. They're definitely going to be renovated in the sense of new finishes. They'll have, at a minimum, a marker board for them to collaborate on and meet and discuss. But we'll talk about what's going to go on inside that and can update you on that, when maybe early June when we get together again.
Okay, but they said those spaces were sufficient size to meet their needs?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the flip side. I would say that the locker rooms, feedback I got from some staff members that you met with and proposed your drawings to, were very happy and excited about what they saw, because it did reopen everything down there and gives them the space that they were looking to get.
Oh.
So yeah, they were very happy with that.
Good. Any other comments on the floor plans? The next couple. So just the last thing, kind of a minor code thing here, is just creating another way out of the gym. Today you only have 2 ways out of your gym, and just due to the size of the gym, to meet current code, that's kind of why we have that looped hallway that goes around to the bottom side of the locker rooms that connects into the back side of the gym there. It's really to create a third way out of the gym, and that's why we also have another set of double doors that take you to the exterior of the building there. Instead of just having that hallway come up and meet the hallway on the north there, we needed to create another way out of the gym to, meet current code and get you out of the building. Okay. Then, let's go to the exterior now. So. We just put this image in here as kind of a starting point of some of the discussions we had with the administration about trying to create a front entrance that is kind of similar amongst the buildings, using the high school, since it's the newest building built, to try to almost set some sort of precedent for what the district's entryways would look like at the main entryways. So if you go to the next slide, just kind of see where we evolved the front entrance to. Taking the metal panels that we showed you guys back in December and bringing them into the front entrance, tying both the cafeteria, if you on the left side. So we're kind of standing in the parking lot looking up at where the existing canopy is today. That's the cafeteria on the left side. The right side is what we're calling the 6th grade wing before. And so those are 2 different elevations. You can, and using that canopy to tie those 2 elevations together, having it staggered like that, using some brick piers to match some of the existing materials, that red brick that you already have on the bottom of that 6th grade wing, kind of tying the canopy at the front of the building to where the flagpole is today, to kind of clean that up a little bit, and just create a better sense of entry. And then over top of that canopy, where we have, where above where the building signage is, creating a sloped canopy entrance there to just, give it some cover and some height. So if you go to the next image, you can kind of see it zoomed out here. So we started with the front entrance. Wanted to make sure that definitely felt like a new front entrance. I think a little bit of what's going on today is it's hard to tell exactly where the front entrance of that building is. So a couple other things we did to the front here. Starting on the left side, That's the cafeteria entrance, cafeteria auditorium entrance today, and not modifying it at all, just changing the color of the roof to be, just painting it blue. If we use the right types of paint and it's applied properly, it'll be fine to paint that a blue color to match the other roofs that we're replacing out. Over top of the cafeteria, one of the things that evolved in the last couple months is just that the cafeteria roof is leaking. There's leaking issues in the cafeteria. Some of it is due to the skylights that are in the cafeteria. So what we were proposing to do is take the skylights out and put in a clear story, which is basically 4-sided windows with a roof over top of it, which will not leak like skylights tend to do over time. And then working your way around to the 6th grade wing, like we showed you guys in December, replacing the metal roof over the 6th grade area with a blue roof that ties that all together. And then, over the last few months, one of the things that kind of evolved on this elevation was taking the entrance to the 6th grade area and trying to do something with it that makes it look like a side entrance. So like the cafeteria side entrance, try to tie those two together. So you see 6th grade entrance, cafeteria entrance, and then main entrance looks completely different. I think the building signage definitely helps where the main entrance is, but trying to have these side entrance have a similar feel to them. Stay back.
Over
Not
the
quite ready.
course of, say, 15, 20 years, with the paint or those exterior materials, are they metal or what are they?
Which ones are you talking about? The metal wall panels?
Yeah, the wall panels and
panels?
then the roof that's all metal?
So the roof is metal, and the, I guess, silverish white panels are also metal panels, yes.
Okay. What's the durability of those? Because I know if you go to NAMS, one of the worst things about NAMS is it looks like a warehouse, because it's all discolored and it looks terrible. One of my concerns is that, we'll have something that looks new for 5 years and it'll look like it's 30 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have some of that.
What kind of material is that?
I mean, you have some of that going on here, too. It looks a little bit like a warehouse
Yeah.
where the metal roof kind of folds up. I mean, the paint and the coloring in the metal roofs are dramatically different than they were 30 years ago. The colors that we're picking are not the types of colors that are going to fade, like if we did a bright red, fire engine red roof. So that roof's going to look new for a long time. I mean, that metal roof will last you 40 years. I would say the coloring, what do you think, maybe 20 years? In the 20, 25 years with the coloring. And similarly with the metal wall panels. I mean, it's this very similar paint system that is used in the wall panels that is used in the roof system. So I think that's what you're looking at from kind of a durability standpoint.
For those materials on the wall panels, one of the things we ran into high school, if you walk around it, there's like rust stains going down, from either the windows or the bolts on the sign that hold the, Bethel Park High School sign above. Are we choosing materials so they're not going to rust and stain the wall?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is just how you detail it so that rust goes, you don't see it, essentially. It has somewhere to go. So that'll be on kind of how it's all pulled together and detailed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has an impact on the material selection also. I mean, you're going to use aluminum or vinyl or whatever.
and using fasteners that are exposed.
Stainless steel fasteners,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Yep. Doug wants me to go to the next slide.
Keeping us going.
All right, so this is the back of the building, and so we wanted to also take a look at this. This is, you can see this from anywhere down over the hill. You can actually see the auditorium volume from the parking lot right here. So this is almost as a big impact of how this building feels as the front of the building does, just from the rest of the community. So if you go to the next slide, what we wanted to do here was a couple things. One, take the auditorium volume and give it some life. Give it something. We're not going to put windows in the auditorium, but put some light metal panels on the face of the auditorium wall to give it some color. You can also see here, where we're taking the existing window openings and making them larger to bring more light into the classrooms. And then to help break up the sea of brick is, again, taking some thin corrugated metal panels and putting them against, sporadically around the windows. And the reason we did that it was way too heavy of a feeling to wrap the whole building that way, and just allowed us maybe on Educational Boulevard to introduce a little bit of that too. The other thing, if you flip back real quick, Doug, to the last image, one of the things that has gone on with this building over the last 50 years or so is the discoloration of the brick. You can see right there that darker brick, that's original. That's from when the building was built. The lighter brick down below and to the left is from the 90s. That was actually an addition put onto the building. This is a real good example of kind of the worst case scenario you're looking at up there. But if you drive across Educational Boulevard, you'll see 15-foot wide swatches of this where you have the light brick and the dark brick. And if we're going to increase window openings, we're going to have a lot of little brick patching like this. And what do we do to this so it doesn't just look like a patchwork mess? And so what we are proposing to do is take a stain and apply it to the concrete block. That stain will absorb into the concrete. It's not like a paint. It won't need to be repainted. It'll stay on that block. It'll absorb into it and stay with, for the life of that block. And it would, if you go to the rendering, I mean, we're suggesting using the same color tone that is up there today. It's just it'll hide that discoloration wherever we have to patch block or even where the existing discoloration is today. You clean the building and you apply that stain. So it looks as close to what we're trying to show you guys with this rendering as possible.
And it's important to say that the stain is a semi-opaque, meaning it actually has solids in it. So it doesn't just bleed into the block. It bleeds in and it bonds with the block, but it also creates a more uniform appearance because there's some opaque solids in it.
Okay, I have a question because my dad was in whitewares and ceramic engineering for 45 years. The worst thing he ever told me to do is you paint a brick house. You took something that did not require any work, and now you have to do something to it. So what's that stain going to do to that block?
Well, so that's why we're not going to use paint for that very
Stain
reason.
is still something that I understand it's adhering to the block, which is exactly what the paint does. So is it going to release?
No.
No.
The paint adheres to the primer. The primer adheres to the block. It's a coating. Paint is a coating. Stain is not. Stain actually penetrates into the concrete material of the block and becomes a permanent part of it. So it doesn't flake off. It doesn't bleed off. It bonds and stays.
Okay, will weather discolor that just like it does paint?
No. I mean, that's why we went to a stain versus suggesting anything with the paint. I think, in 10 years you'd be repainting the building if we told you to use a paint. While we're, the stain will, if we use a stain, the idea would be to use a stain color that is kind of natural to the block, and will hide that discoloration, and it'll last the life of that block. It'll bond and basically become one with that block. So, believe me, I had the same skepticism that you had talking to different manufacturers about what could we do to that block so it doesn't look all patchy all the time, and was worried that the only thing that we could come up with would be a paint. And again, painting block is such a terrible idea, but they showed us some, the stain, and we're gonna work with some contractors that we're gonna have on phase one. They take the painting contractor up there and test it out in a few areas, see what it looks like before we, do something like that holistically. But yeah, it's something that's done, and it's not like it's something that's being invented here for the first time. So. All right. You can go to the next slide, Doug.
Wait, if I can also point out one additional item on here. Notice that if you, on the old photo, you can't really distinguish where the entrance to the gymnasium is. Now there's a canopy above and the word gymnasium on it, so that it really, when visitors come, and then also we'll probably put some signage on the corner of the building that'll point to the gymnasium so that folks know where it is. So right now, that ties it all together. And then also on Education Boulevard side where we add another exit, we'll do a similar thing there as well. So it ties the front of the building, side of the building, both sides with the same look.
That's good. I'm glad you actually brought that up because I had a neighbor who asked about signage, recommending that we have better signage because it's hard to find things.
Yes.
You know, for visiting teams.
For sure.
All right. I don't intend to go through this line by line. I kind of put it up here as a reminder for myself in case there's anything I didn't go over already when we were going through the floor plans. I guess we didn't talk about the auditorium at all. We did meet with the auditorium folks to talk about some of the concerns in the auditorium. You know, we are proposing to replace the seating in the auditorium that's very old. And then a couple of the other things that just came up was just making some slight modifications to the existing rigging system that has some problems with the back curtains. Getting some speakers in there, as there's only one speaker in your auditorium right now, which is hard to believe. And then looking at replacing some failing theatrical lighting. So just a couple things added into the systems of the auditorium. If you want to go to the next slide, I mean, every toilet room in the building will be handicap accessible and renovated as such to make them handicap accessible. Just a couple things down in the gymnasium, you know, replacing the bleachers, which are blue bleachers that I believe are hand-me-down bleachers from somewhere. Divider curtains are pretty tattered and in poor shape. Basketball backstops are original to the building. And then just improving the look of with some new acoustical treatments in the gymnasium. A couple other just things up here, replacing all the HVAC throughout the building. I think we've talked about that before, and all the ductwork and HVAC supply below the ceiling. On the elevations, you saw, you know, the windows, replacing the canopy at the front entrance and the metal roofing. And then the last thing up here that we wanted to touch on here, kind of ending the scope of work summary, is considering to replace the low slope roof system, which is the roof on the rest of the building. And this was not something that we had discussed doing before. But just kind of want to update you guys on how we got here with this. So feasibility study time, we asked Garland, and we actually brought Sam Roberts from Garland. He's sitting behind us to answer any questions that may come up after I kind of give a high-level overview of this. But so we had Sam come out, take a look at the roof in the feasibility study. Garland has the warranty on this roof and a number of other roofs in the district. So we asked them to come out, take a look at it, and at that time, no leaking was reported. Roof looked okay, so we didn't recommend you include in the feasibility study doing anything with the roof. It still had, I think, 6 years at that time of warranty. Is it 6 years? 4 years now. 4 years now, okay. So at that time, it still had 6 years of warranty life left, so we didn't recommend putting it in the project. Over the last...
And Mike, let me just jump in. By we mean working with Garland, who's been servicing that roof till that point for 14 years. You know, in collaboration with them, we looked at that, made the recommendation.
Yes, so over the last 2 months, we asked Sam, go out there and take another look at it. There were some leaks being reported in the gym, some leaks being reported in the cafeteria. So he went and took a look at it and did an infrared scan of the roof, and you know, the roof systems in those two areas are starting to fail. You know, the rest of the roof has some, you know, 5-6 years of life left with some maintenance, but we put this on here for you guys to consider. It would definitely be something that would have to be added to the project, but while you're doing the building all at once, maybe it makes sense to add in the, replacing this roof. Otherwise, you can plan on maybe setting some money aside to take a look at it in 5 or 6 years. So that's why that's what we wanted to kind of go over that with you and just see if you guys had any questions on that.
What's projected cost on that item? Just
What-
ballpark.
On replacing the whole roof. Sam, is it?
Yeah, it's right around $3 million.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
$2 million.
I think it's between that somewhere. I think Rick said 3 million, didn't he?
Right, yeah.
New
And that's the
system or
three.
is just the similar system that's up right now?
So
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to, at this point, let me jump in. Sam, your time in the spotlight. So if you could explain the roof, right? So 16 years ago, what was it replaced? It was actually a part of an overall district-wide program. And Garland, when they, just explain your warranty, how you inspect it annually, and et cetera.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? So the roof that you have on there, it was a 20-year roof system that was installed in 2006, okay? What it is a 3-ply built-up roof system with a flood and gravel surfacing. So as Mike said, we inspected the roof in November of 2020. At that time, no leaks were reported. We had no warranty claims against the roof. We inspected it. We did see some preventative maintenance type items that needed to be done that we put in our initial report. Preventative maintenance for a roof is cleaning drains, replacing deteriorated caulking, that sort of thing. Things that aren't intended to last the full life of the roof, maintenance type items. So we moved on from there. We gave it a good rating. We said, hey, yeah, we believe this roof, it has 6 years left on its warranty, on the warranty period, its design life. We feel it's going to last that long, maybe additional years after that. So early this spring, after talking with the folks from Hayes as well as Site Logic, and then Nick, we became aware of a few leaks in different areas of the building. As Mike said, the gymnasium was one that we were very concerned about because of the new gymnasium floor, right? We don't want to have any damage to that new wood floor. You have the cafeteria and then a room 234. It was a very particular room on the back side of the school where they were having a leak. So we immediately were out there. We had our technicians inspecting the roof thoroughly, right? Looking at drain bowl clamping rings, looking at flashings, anywhere that water might be able to enter the roof system to identify where it was coming from. We also followed up with an infrared scan of the roof to identify if there was wet insulation in the roof over these leaking areas. What we found was wet insulation over top of the leaking areas of the roof. So we were able to isolate those on certain areas of the roof, right over room 234, isolated a little small area of wet insulation. That wet insulation was actually cut out and replaced through a warranty claim today by a contractor. So there is new roof, new dry insulation over room 234 as of the end of the day today. Two other sections are the gymnasium and the cafeteria. Gymnasium and cafeteria, the causes are a little bit more difficult to pinpoint. So the gymnasium, we found a little bit of water near a unit that was put in, I believe, a year or so ago, and then also some around a drain. And then on the cafeteria, when we completed the infrared scan, we found some moisture on either side of the skylights, okay? To try to identify where this was coming from, we did a water test. We started a water test. We did it yesterday. We were trying to hurry it up so that we could get some information for you here for the board meeting. We ended up getting rained out. So once it rains during a water test, you can't really tell where the water's coming from. Surprisingly, it rained and there was no leaks in the cafeteria this morning when I went back to check on things. So that one's a little bit of a mystery right now. But we need to further investigate those areas. And then come up with options for the district, right? And whenever reviewing this with Dr. J and the folks from Hayes, we said, hey, look, we have two options. Garland's not going to run away from our warranty. We're going to meet our obligations, and we're going to continue to do repairs to get you to the end of your warranty period, as we did today over room 234. We're going to do that. You don't have to worry about us, not holding up our end of the bargain. That's fine. That's option one. Option number two, instead of having us dedicate that money towards short-term repairs that are going to last you hopefully more than 4 years, but 4 years and then the warranty will be over, we also have the option to reinvest that into a new roof system. Okay, so knowing that we have this board meeting coming up, wanting to have options prepared, I spoke to our board of directors, and one of the options that we have available to you, if you do choose to do a roof and you do choose to work with Garland again, would be to, if you would replace the roof, first of all, what we would do is we would extend the warranty of the future roof system, which would be designed differently than the 20-year system that was planned back in 2006. So we would give you an extension on that warranty to make up for the rest of the warranty that you still have on that roof. And then we would also credit you back materials basically for the project based on the value of the repair that we would have to complete to get it into watertight condition right now. So those are a couple options. I know we formalized the options a little bit more in a written document to Dr. Walsh, but that's where we're at right now. So I can take any questions you may have on the roof.
Well, the one question, the first that kind of generated that was, okay, what roof is on there now, and what are you proposing would go back?
Okay, so the roof on there right now is it's called a 3-ply built up. So what it was 2 felts. Have you ever seen Shawshank Redemption? Right, everybody's seen that, where they were mopping down hot asphalt and felts. So you have 2 layers of felt and then a little bit heavier cap sheet on top, and then a flood and gravel surfacing. That particular system was designed for 20 years. The weakness of that system over time can be inflexibility of those felts, right? They don't have the expansion and contraction as, say, a modified membrane would have. So over time, those could begin to have some issues. Now, I will tell you, our roof isn't designed to only last 16 years and then start failing, right? We do believe there are particular reasons why those certain areas have started to leak, and we can fix those because the rest of your roof system, a full 95% of it is completely dry, okay? So there are particular areas that we're dealing with this issue. But the new system that we would recommend is to go with a 2-ply modified system. So what that is you have multiple layers of it's a woven scrim with asphalt that's modified with rubber, okay, basically. And what that does is it gives it good flexibility, good UV resistance, and you could look at doing a different surfacing. Instead of flood and gravel, that's a little bit of a traditional type approach to roofing. You could look at something a little bit cleaner, maybe a little bit lighter colored, brighter up there on the roof, like a mineral surfacing or a coated mineral surfacing that's going to be a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to inspect over time. That would be a 30 plus, say if you were to replace a section of roof this year, it would be a 30 plus an additional 4. If you replaced it next year, it would be a 30 plus an additional 3 years.
So the credit that you're offering for warranty, is that just based on the current repairs that have to be made, or is there some projection over the next 4 years of the life of the warranty of additional repairs you'd have to make?
Mm-hmm. So it was based on the current repairs that we have to make. So we would give the 3-year or 4-year extension to the warranty to credit you for basically anything that could have occurred between now and the end of the warranty in 4 years. Okay, that would credit you for things that could happen in the future. And then right now, we basically have a square foot cost for repairing the roof based on the bid that we received to repair the roof over room 234. So we could use that on a square foot basis to identify the area that needs patched, calculate a total, and then credit that to the district.
Okay.
Yeah, what I can comment to the board on is that the traditional felts that Sam had mentioned are inflexible. The extremes in our weather, both colder and then quickly becoming warmer and going back and forth, that is stressing the roof. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That these sections that we're talking about right now, are not going to get better unless you believe that the temperatures and the temperature swings in the next 4 years are going to moderate. We don't. We think there's going to continue to be these extremes. Again, I mean, we've seen it in the last month, let alone the last 2 years. So that's an issue, and it's not just your roof, it's across the board in many roofs that are installed. That's a challenge. So it's part of where we came up with the, again, working with Garland, said, what do we have to offer the district in terms of options to address it? And again, part of it is also understand that Garland's responsible for the roof system, but if you have a leak and it damages your floor, they're not responsible for that. So, so that's part of where some of, okay, if you can get ahead of the issue, it may help the district in other ways. So,
Sam, one last thing. If you could just address roofing materials. Are they available? Is there any issues with that?
So roofing's like everything else right now in the construction market. The most difficult to procure items right now are actually simple fasteners and the fastener plates, as well as polyiso insulation, which is the most common type of insulation used in roofing. So right now, as of the past year, we were looking at an 8 to 10 month lead time to get those materials. Now, we do have a direct relationship with an insulation manufacturer. I had a phone call with our representative who works directly with them yesterday, and they thought that we'd be able to get insulation for a project by September of this year. So things are improving on that side of things. We do have to keep in mind, though, that polyiso is a byproduct of the petroleum industry, right? So that could obviously fluctuate here in the future, but things are starting to improve with polyiso. As far as your actual membranes and adhesives, those are available and ready to go at any time. There's not really a substantial lead time. It's more the polyiso that we're interested in. If the school district was interested in a particular section of roof, say it was the gymnasium, because of our direct relationship, I could go back and do a pre-order of the insulation while we're still figuring out contractors and bidding and design and all of that to lock us in for September, October of this year.
So then the work would be done while students are in school. How noisy, how disruptive would that be to an academic day?
Typically what we do, because of labor availability in Pittsburgh, which hasn't been great over the last 3 to 4 years, we're doing a lot of second shift work in the fall, right? Weather, labor availability is pushing projects back. So we would plan it as a second shift project in the fall. Kids would leave, contractors would show up, and we would get started on the project. I would remind you, for us in particular too, we require of all of our contractors to have clearances for every one of their folks, for all of our jobs. It's just a standard that we hold.
Any questions? No other questions? Okay. Thank you.
And then the only other small point we'll make is we still have the courtyard at the high school to finish. That was the work that we did last year to deal with the water penetration through a failed foundation seal. The repair work was done, the re-insulation work was done, the backfill was done. They were just waiting for better weather to do the rest of the landscaping and replace certain sections of concrete. So Nick is working with the contractor and also Christy Costanzo, project architect in our office, who you met a couple weeks ago, and they're coordinating that time frame, and we're going to try to get it done as soon as possible.
Just to build on what Kevin said, it's right now we're primarily waiting for the weather to stabilize. The warm days, cold mornings, rain just isn't conducive for concrete work.
But as soon as the weather breaks, that's all good to go. I mean,
Correct. Jay Stewart's already been out to check out the area. Christy Costanza from Hayes is in constant contact, and we are literally just waiting for weather.
Thank you. I think it's it for Hayes then?
Well, I think number 4 on the agenda, we're going to cover that one now?
That's not Hayes.
Yeah, that's, I was just
Oh,
saying,
okay,
I
I'm
think that's
sorry.
all we have for Hayes
Okay.
Group.
Yeah, okay.
So if there's any other questions, and the same with Site Logic, right?
Yep.
Yeah, one thing I just want to finish up with, is to address the board's concern. I heard some concerns about additional scope, and there's more scope in the project than was previously in the project. Our role as Site Logic is to bring you a project that hits your priorities and meets your budgets, and we intend to do that. We did this at Peters Township with Hayes Group, very successfully, but, there are decisions to be made to get to that budget. But we're here to tell you that we will get you to the budget that you desire.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I think next we have up, administration is going to give us an update on our restroom facilities at the high school practice fields. So
Yeah,
who's
thank you,
taking
Mr.
the lead?
Modrek. I'll take that.
Thank you.
So the board's expectation was that we would move forward with talking to modular manufacturers for the possibility of adding a modular restroom / concession stand facility on the lower end of the softball field by the turf practice fields. We've been able to connect finally with one of the vendors who has gone back to the drawing board to come up with some plans and some pricing to share with the board. Don't have that yet. However, they believe that if we can make some commitment to this project before the end of the month, they could have it on site and assembled before the 1st of September. So as soon as we get those plans and pricing, we'll get that to you. And we're still trying to connect with other vendors in addition to the one that we've talked to so far. Good.
To follow up
Yep.
on that, just one question. We're putting those facilities at the lacrosse fields, the extra football fields, those kinds of things. We, as a board, had received an email about a week or so ago regarding facilities at Perky. Are we able to open up the bathrooms on the stadium visitor side for those?
I have been in contact with Mr. Sloan. Those should have been open. I don't understand what happened, but we are also in the process of ordering signs to direct everybody to that.
That was my next thing. Could we put some signs up?
Yeah.
Because nobody is going to find
No,
those.
I've been in contact with Mr. Sloan. We're developing signs, and I should have them by the end of next week.
Okay.
So we'll come,
Go ahead.
I was waiting.
One more question then. Moving on that, because we're looking at a concession stand at those areas, are we able to open the concession stand on the visitor side for baseball games? I don't know that it's been requested, but I have the feeling they're going to say.
It's never been requested, but I don't foresee that being an issue.
Okay, I just don't want them to say they're getting the concession stand.
Understand.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question was, the plan is that bottom gate down there by the driveway that comes out from the center court would be the gate of choice for them going up versus keeping them out of the back of the stadium with the gravel. And they're already back in the gravel.
Right.
That's a catch-22 because
Right.
back in the gravel.
I really didn't, to be honest, think that far and had to access to the stadium for that.
I'm just trying to minimize
Right.
because the back is not always, because that's more of a work area.
It's more of a work area, but we have actually cleaned that area up, and our giant pile of millings is actually gone, and it's more of an open area back there now, which does allow for some foot traffic.
Okay, thank you.
And just remind the board that we do have two different sources of funding for that project, so this will be the district's share of it. We expect to be less than half of what the overall cost will be. I'll make a mention also that we had two other topics on the agenda for tonight. We were including Draw Collective to join us and talk about where they are with iterations on the elementary project. At last conversation this morning about 9:30, they did not have enough meat on the bone for it to be of any use to the board at this time, and so we've deferred them. We think we'll have them here in front of the board maybe next week or the week after, depending on how much progress they can make on those iterations. We have really the three options that the board gave to them when we talked to them during the interview process. They also have re-looked at the feasibility study, and you know that was written in 2020. Pricing estimates were 2020 costs, and so they're also going to update building costs with more modern pricing on what we could expect to spend on a renovation or in a construction project. And so that's why they're not here tonight, because I just didn't think that they had enough meat on the bone. And frankly, some of the assumptions they were making about the sites was really their own assumptions. We had not had a good chance to sit with them and talk about accessing the campus or orientation of buildings and those sorts of things that I think we all were understanding what to expect, and they were not working from those same assumptions. So with good planning and time, we'll have them here in front of you probably certainly by the end of the month to show you where they are with the designs. And you may really, looking at pricing and designs and the educational benefit that they're drawing to, help us coalesce around what option makes the most sense, educationally and fiscally. Okay? Which means the last item on our information session, Doug talking financing, is really a moot point until they can update those numbers, until they can get 2022 pricing on a construction or renovation project. I'll acknowledge too, thanks to several folks for joining us on a world tour. So we've been out to visit buildings. We were at the new Montour Elementary School, an $81 million building that houses 1,200 kids, or 1,200 K through 4 students. And then today we were at Franklin Regional, where they built 2 buildings to house their kindergarten through 2nd and 3rd through 5th grade students, coincidentally designed by Draw Collective. So we were able to kind of get a flavor for their work and how they interact with the community and so forth. So a lot of good ideas, a lot of good don't do this kinds of things and suggestions. More so today than last time we went out. We went to Montour. Not so many don't do this. It's because they still love what they came up with. They still love their building and have no regrets about it, which was a surprising answer to every time I asked it, what would you do different, to everybody that we interacted with, and the answer was nothing. They really like what they came up with. Of course, for $81 million, who can't be surprised by that reaction. So, and so I want to thank those that spent the time and went on those visits with us and came back with all those ideas. That's going to keep going on and continue to get good ideas, good information, and keep sharing it with each other and with the Draw folks, so that they're going to come up with the best possible educational benefit that they can with the resources and the budget. Okay? Good? Questions on those two? Okay, so there's just 2 motions that were in your section, Mr. Modrick.
So the 2 more sections is permission to advertise for bids. One are the bids for the concrete pad and storage shed installation at the high school, which we just got done talking about. And then the other one, which was talked earlier by the Hayes Group, was request permission to advertise for the bus garage site improvement project.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion to move forward.
Okay.
Second?
Second.
Second.
McGregor? Okay. This motion was made by Mr. Modrak, second by Mr. McGregor, to proceed with advertising bids for items 7 and 8. Can we vote on these together?
Sure. Voting is open.
Okay, that wraps up facilities. We do have one item to vote on in the Finance Committee. Mr. Gresbeck, could you take that?
Sure. I move to approve item 1 under Finance Committee, payment for paving replacement. Any discussion on that item?
Second.
No questions?
No discussion.
Voting is open. Mrs. Weiss? You're a yes? Yes. Okay. Motion carries.
She's pointing at your screen. You're supposed to know what that means.
Any other public comments on things we discussed tonight or anything else?
I would like to, I think some of us got an email today. I would like to extend my deepest condolences to Judy Oakley, to Jeff and Michelle on the passing of Gus this morning. He was a board president here. He was a school board member. He was a dentist in the area. He was the school dentist for a long time here. Community's going to miss that part of having somebody as a community advocate that really advocated for academics here at Bethel Park. So deepest condolences to the whole family as over this holiday week too.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments?
Is Site Logic, are they a general contractor or are they just
Sir, could you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Steve Paul, can you use the mic?
Yeah, just so it comes.
People
right there at the
online
table.
can't hear you.
Yeah.
Right there at the table, as long as there's a button, as long as it's green.
Just so
Sorry.
everybody can hear.
So, right on the base, right below. Press button, as long as it's green.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't think everybody's going to yell at you, huh?
Okay.
There.
Yeah.
Technology does not make everything easier. Just
Steve Paul, Willow Terrace. Is Site Logic, are they the general or are they the construction managers? Both. They're both? Is there a way I can get a copy of the subs that are on the job?
They gave us a list.
They did.
Yeah.
Is there any way I can get a copy to see?
You send me an email.
I'll give you my email before I leave,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, no, that's, okay, all right. Just shut this off.
You can just stay there and talk. So, any call-ins?
there are no call-ins.
No call-ins? Any other comments? Any board comments? Motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.